to another Keelhauled podcast. I'm your host, Captain Logan, and we've got a lot of Sea of Thieves news to cover today, so tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast. Ahoy there, pirates. Hope you had yourselves a good week and a good weekend. I know I did. This week there was a lot of controversy on the internet about Sea of Thieves, but more than that, we are excited to find out when the actual next update is coming and potentially what it could be including. All that and more on this week's episode of Keelhauled Podcast. First up on today's docket, let's talk about this weekly stream, or not the weekly stream, I'm sorry, I'm talking about the dev update video that we got this last week. Of course, Joe comes to us every week and lets us know what's going on with the studio, and this week, we finally started to get some ideas about what's coming with the update this mid-July, and we actually found out what it's going to be called and when it's actually going to be coming out. So the Black Powder Stashes is a regular series of activities that are coming on July 17th. Now, this is about a week and a half away from right now, and it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. Joe says in the video that they will give us something new and interesting for us to do in the world, but I don't know if he means the regular series of activities or if he's talking about what's coming with the Black Powder Stashes in specific. There's going to be some rewards and some commendations for this, most likely future events as well. Stuff that you kind of experience in the Reaper's Mark. I would imagine they'll probably kind of flesh out more of the mercenary stuff, since we still have yet to get we haven't got like a full set of cosmetics for that, so I imagine we'll probably get some of that, if not some more stuff as well. It's hard to know if this is going to be, like, Joe talked about this being kind of similar to the Reaper's runs, but he didn't specifically say that it was Reaper's runs, but he also didn't say that it wasn't a full Bilge Rat adventure. And I'm kind of wondering if they've kind of given up too much ground with the Bilge Rat update. Like they've pushed some stuff in, and they've turned this Bilge Rat Adventures into a full set of things, and now maybe they're kind of wishing they had pulled back a little bit and not gone so far with that, because right now it's clear that there are some original Bilge Rat Adventures that have just kind of laid stagnant, and I'm wondering if Rare is kind of wishing that they hadn't implemented them, because now if you think about it, like, some of those things are stuck in the game. Like, those assets are stuck in the game, and you can't really take those out, because those are going to be something that was a part of the world that the player base had done, and taking those out would be kind of a bummer for the people that originally did them, though I don't know that they'd miss the thrones specifically, and they don't really serve too much purpose outside of giving people something to like check off. Like it's a thing that you can check off on a list of commendations to do. You don't get any of the special cosmetics, you don't get any of the doubloons that they came out with for those. It's purely just to say that you did it and that you got the titles for it. And I kind of wonder if maybe if they had a chance to take these out of the game, that it wouldn't free up some resources for some other stuff. I don't know. So Joe goes on to say that they're working out just how they want to reveal more information about coming content for Adventure. And for the time being, we're going to have these series of events to give the community something to do. With year 1 being finished up and kind of moving into year 2 for the life of the game, we're kind of at the point now where finding the balance of content versus quality is more important than ever. And again, it kind of brings back my question from March. Why don't we have double experience and double gold weekends, at least say like once a month? Like, smaller events that aren't tied to cosmetics or special requirements can help give the player base something to look forward to while still kind of minimizing the amount of effort on the team. Having more people try and earn treasure on, say, like double I don't know what you'd call them, but like double gain weekends. I don't know if that makes sense, but like double, you know what I'm talking about. But having like these double earnings weekends serves both the PvE community that like doing voyages and forts, killing stuff, etc., and as well as the PvP people that like to have things to go steal from other players. It also forces engagements without people getting upset because it hinders their commendation progress for specific things like build red adventures and losing out on mercenary missions and stuff like that. And now, without knowing more about the black powder stashes, it stands to reason that it could serve this purpose, and we just don't know yet. Like, that could be what's coming, but I don't know what we're actually going to be getting. So until we kind of find out on the 17th, it's kind of up in the air. But one thing is super clear to me right now, and it's that's Rare is still trying to find that kind of sweet spot between like smaller content updates and larger content updates. And at the moment, we don't even really know like if there are going to be larger content updates. Like, I have my theories, obviously. Like, I have talked about numerous times how I know that, well, I don't know, but I'm assuming that the next big things are going to be things like mermaids and like, what was the other one? Wanda. I think Wanda is going to come back. I think we're going to deal with Flameheart at some point, and that'll probably sate us for quite a while until Rare comes out with more story for us to kind of drool over and stuff. But I really do believe in these double XP, double gold weekends. I think it's going to be something that Rare should really start to kind of like embrace, because it gets a lot of people that have availability on the weekends to go out and try and earn as much as possible, and that's just going to fuel the fires for the people that like to go out and purely I can't talk tonight, purely steal from other pirates, without it being something like, like you buy mercenary missions with doubloons. So doubloons are a very coveted currency, so that you can buy levels if you want to do that, if you need to do that. If you don't, then it doesn't really matter as much to you. It's about as equal as gold, just harder to get. But like, people are trying to get commendations done, and sometimes that breeds more people kind of working together because they're all on a common goal. Like, they all want to complete it, as opposed to something like a double XP weekend where there's nothing really to lose other than you just don't get the gold that you intended, but there's a bigger chance that if you go out hunting for stuff that you'll be able to find good stuff. So I think that's something that we really need to kind of take another look at, because we did it once, it worked out amazingly, and it hasn't been touched since. And in a game where everything's bought with gold, cosmetics and everything, like, I feel like that's where we should be moving towards, is starting to get more of these double XP weekends. From the sounds of things, the content update that we're getting on the 17th is also going to have some bug fixes, as always. They're always working on that, but then some quality of life changes that are kind of slated for that patch. And they said that we won't really know more about what's going on with that until later on. So at the earliest, I would say the 10th. At the latest, obviously the 17th. But I'm kind of hoping that sometime this week we'll get a little bit of an update from the weekly dev update video, and we'll have an idea of what they kind of mean by quality of life changes. Because at the moment, there's a lot on my list of things that I want, but if they're going to add something quality of life, then like let's talk about those the Hunter's Call reputation and gold earnings. Like, is that the thing that they're talking about? Because it's already been technically announced, but I don't think Joe was there when Shelly was talking about it on the weekly stream, so he might not have realized. But that's a quality of life improvement that I would appreciate. So looking forward to that, and I'm interested to see kind of how things go. But that's it for the weekly update. A lot of it was just them kind of, well, no, actually, sorry. Let me take a second and reiterate. There was a lot of conversation about stuff that's going on with the NDA that happened this weekend that Rare wanted us to participate in if we were in the insider program. Again, it's their system, their rules. They're allowed to make it and make exceptions or do whatever they want. They can talk about whatever they want, but it's hard for me to be on the insiders and know if I can talk about this or not. But in the I'm gonna take a chance here and just say that it's in the dev update video, so hopefully you got a chance to jump on the insiders testing that went on this weekend for Arena. I don't know how it went because I didn't get a chance to go and really jump into it that much. I got like 2 games in, but they added multiple ships to test out to see how it went, and they genuinely wanted feedback from the community on if mixed ship types in Arena was something that we want. And I actually think yes. I think if you're a sloop crew and you are bold enough to try and go out into Arena and compete against full galleon crews, then I say, why not do it if that's what you want to do. I don't know if you're able to jump on a solo sloop in this instance, because the times that I got a chance to jump in, I tried doing the open crew because there was going to be an increase in people jumping into it, and I wanted to see what that was like if they were trying to win because they were getting a doubloon incentive. And I see, I don't even know if I can even talk about that because it's all technically insider. But it was an interesting experience to jump in and to try out the Arena. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. They had a good time. I'm hoping that Rare got a lot of feedback from that and a lot of information, data and stuff, so that they can kind of tweak and work on that. Because at the moment, and I feel like I'm just going to jump into the next topic. I hope you guys don't mind. That's pretty much it for the weekly update video anyway. It's kind of a waiting game right now as we wait for July 17th to find out what this next Black Powder Stashes is going to be, and then we'll find out later on more about the Arena as they start to continue to work on that as it's kind of getting into its first year of being live. But the thing that I wanted to talk about revolves around adventure and a current group of the player base who feel like they're being robbed of an opportunity right now. And what that kind of ties into is the double XP stuff that I was talking about earlier. And this was something that really kind of hit with some of the Twitter community and some of the YouTube community, and in part some of the Twitch community as far as I could tell. The stretch for it was moderate but not amazing, but it definitely was brought to my attention that there was a rant by a Twitch streamer, Summit, who is upset about the game. And I'm not going to get into what he said or how he said things or his feelings on that, but he brings up points that I think should be heard. And while I think the way that he presented them really did the group of people that feel this way a disservice, there are some interesting points that I think should be brought up. And that's to do with the tall tales in adventure. Tall Tales is the first dive that the game has seen for a story-driven campaign. We got 9 full Tall Tales to work through, and all of them together ended up being one large campaign. The criticism of this was that the Tall Tales are all that's being done outside of fishing or forts. And while people are generally fishing because it's a much lauded after request for the game, they are spending most of their time fishing and not going out and hunting skeletons, digging up chests, and capturing animals, because we've been doing that for a year. So people going out and sailing and just fishing on big ships and going out and doing tall tales. The trouble with the tall tales is that right now, most of the items, if not all, don't have any kind of monetary value, which I've talked about in the Discord, which if you're not a part of, you should definitely jump in, because we've had some good conversations, some civil good conversations about the topics that deserve to be discussed in a civil way without making things personal, because that's where we get good results, as opposed to things on the internet where we're just starting to picket people for, superficial reasons to try and win an argument instead of presenting a better argument. And they brought up very valid points, and I think that Tall Tales doesn't give any kind of monetary rewards right now, because a lot of the stuff that is built into those tales revolves around ancient items that were present for the group of people that lived in the Sea of Thieves before us pirates invaded upon it. And as a result, the trading companies that we have don't really see value in that ancient technology, because there's no one outside of the Sea of Thieves that will really give you anything for it. Because if you, say, take out a Shroudbreaker out into the regular world, it might raise some questions about its origins, and then you have to start explaining what the Sea of Thieves is, where you got it, and then that'll bring more people into the Sea of Thieves to try and harvest some of the stuff that the trade companies are trying to control so much. The gold hoarders only want the treasure that was buried by Ramses and the chests that they have keys for. The Order of Souls are only interested in the memories and power granted by the undead skeletons, who remember where they buried the treasure so that they can pass on the treasure information to the gold hoarders, and they gain the powers of the undead skeletons. And the Merchant Alliance are there to control the trade goods coming in and going out of Sea of Thieves for people. And ancient goods just don't really hold a whole lot of sway to them in that aspect. So having these story-driven narratives that don't grant you any items that can be stolen and turned in for gold can be very frustrating for the group of pirates that like to steal from other pirates, as opposed to just grinding out PvE content. And I can understand that. It's really fun when you go onto a ship, you grab stuff and you steal it and you get away with it. And that being said, I think that there is some things that could be done to Tall Tales, as far as like giving treasure that is in the vaults that is of value, but that might have to be something for future Tall Tales, because currently the Shroudbreaker is something that was left behind by ancient civilizations, or people that have gone insane and have gotten a whole bunch of gold and managed to find their way to the shores of gold on their own. And as a result, it doesn't make much sense that there would be stuff that Ramses would have buried in these puzzle vaults, because we're just barely starting to get like an idea of what these are and how to unlock them and how to get into them. So having stuff inside of them that was left from pirates just doesn't make sense in my mind. So you have to kind of find a way to give something that the trade companies would be interested in that would make sense lore wise for why they would be in a puzzle vault, or at least near a puzzle vault. And that kind of takes me, back to some of the other discussions that I was having in regards to giving the players something that they want to do, and how much time has been between content updates. Right now, this is probably the largest stretch of time I can think of between updates. And not just like big updates. I mean like big update to little update to little update to big update. We were in a pretty good stretch where we were getting a content update once a month. And if we weren't getting a content update once a month, then we were at least getting a content update that was like a bilge rat adventure. And each of those started out, they wanted to do a content update and then a weekly bilge rat adventure, and then that stretched to 2 weeks. And then we had another one that was 2 weeks. Then we had a content update, and the content update lasted 3 weeks. And then they found out that 3 weeks wasn't enough, so they made it 4 weeks. And then we found out that bilge rat adventures could last a month before people got kind of tired of them. So then we would kind of have the bilge rat adventures come out once a month, or at least an update once a month. And right now we've had anniversary update without any kind of content update since the end of April, all through May, all through June, to the middle of July. And while we do have two modes, the argument with why the PvP centric people aren't just going to Arena is because Arena just doesn't offer the same kind of thrills that Adventure does. And I agree. When I go into arena, I tend to find that it is kind of a race. You're generally rushing to the nearest island to get treasure that you can, and then go turn it in if you can, find off other pirates to stop them or sink them, go back, rinse and repeat. It's less about trying to come across a ship and then chase that ship down because you think they have something good, only to find out that they've been working on tall tales and they just don't want you to take their keystone or their 2 pendants from Wild Rose or their wood plank from the from oh, I just blanked on what the what Tale 3 is called. But you get my point, right? Like there's an inherent sense of thrill about going and sailing up to a fort and trying to take out the ship that's there and then finish the fort before they get back and then try and make it off with all the treasure in a giant mega keg. And you just don't get that with Arena. And that makes me wonder if that's a failing on Arena's part or something that is just inherently organic about adventure. Like, can you make the adventure, because that was kind of the idea, right? Adventure was intended to be something that was arena was something that was intended to be like adventure, but in a shorter time span, and they would put multiple crews in a smaller area and a bunch of chests and then force each other to fight to see who came out on top, which is great as a game mode, but it doesn't really capture the essence of the natural organic happenings that come with immersive gameplay in the adventure mode. And I think that's what's really kind of hurting the people that like to go out and fight other ships and steal treasure, is that sense of anything can happen at any time. And it usually did, especially when we had skeleton ships that would spawn on players, when Krakens were completely unpredictable, based on just how long of a time frame there was between forts. And forts spawning at such a regular rate is amazing, but it is definitely de-emphasized the importance of getting to that fort. Forts only lasted once, or only came once every 3 hours and were up until they got done. Now forts will actually despawn as you're on your way to getting them, and if you don't get to them in time, then they despawn and respawn somewhere else, and you have to sail somewhere else to get them. Or if someone's doing them, but it's a galleon crew and you're a solo sloop and you don't feel comfortable taking on that galleon crew, just wait, they'll finish it. 5 to 10 minutes later, another one will pop up in a different area, and you'll have a better chance of going to do that one while they finish sailing off the loot and then maybe doing something else. So it's definitely apparent that, one, the amount of time between updates has been a little long for what we are typically used to. And we have had a lot of content to kind of give us stuff to do, but a lot of people have kind of gotten to that point where they are kind of done doing tall tales. They want to get back to the normal routine of going out and doing voyages and stealing treasure from other pirates. And also that the tall tales themselves don't really have any type of value to them because they're so story driven, because they're so campaign focused. And I still stand by my point that it has been a year that we've been able to steal treasure from other pirates. I really want a lore-driven campaign in this game because that's the part that I love about this game. And I'm totally happy doing regular missions without necessarily having to deal with other people, because at times that does really get me a lot of anxiety when I'm alone. When I'm with other crews, I'll just go on a murderous rampage and I won't have to worry about it because there's other people to help take care of the ship as well. So I can go have fun murdering people and sinking ships and doing fun stuff, while other people are helping, making sure that they're shooting the ship and sinking it and then digging up treasure and stowing it and harpooning it and all that good jazz. And so I think that the result right now of Summit's quote unquote rant is valid, that there definitely needs to be something that is more frequent, that gives people who want to fight other players in adventure a justifiable reason to sinking them, only instead of just the satisfaction of actually sinking them. They want to get something earned from that as well, but that's not happening because most people are generally getting fish, which they don't view as valuable because they may not be interested in leveling up Hunter's Call. and tall tales, which don't offer any kind of items that you can steal and turn in. And I don't think that they should give any kind of value to the to the tall tales items. I did before, but the more I think about it, the more frustrating it would be for me to have worked on a tall tale for an hour, sail up to an outpost, not realize there's another crew, have a guy blunder me in the face, steal my shroud breaker, think that he can get the turn in for it, give up, scuttle, leave the server, and come to find out that he couldn't actually do it and tried to give it back, but I had left too early. That would frustrate me, and I could definitely understand why that guy did that when I did that to him. So I think the solution here is giving players a reason to do regular voyages, double XP weekends, giving players something that they can pick up while they're doing treasure run or while they're doing tall tales, so that there's a reason why people would want to steal treasure. And I think one of the other things that I think is really kind of messing with people is I don't see a lot of people running voyages at the same time as tall tales. And this is the first time, sorry, this is kind of a long rant, but it meant a lot that I kind of sit down and actually jump into this, because it was a good discussion that we've been having. It's been happening all over Twitter, and I wanted to share what I think would be a good solution, as opposed to saying, nah, you guys shouldn't even worry about it. But I've also noticed that when people are doing tall tales, they're doing tall tales, but they aren't dropping other missions down. Now, if you do that, don't just assume that I mean everyone. I understand that you could be someone that does that, and I'm just not aware of you doing that, but I understand that is something that probably is being done as well. But for the most part, I typically don't see people running a Gold Hoarders or an Order of Souls or a Merchant Alliance mission alongside a tall tale. They typically do a tall tale and just do the tall tale. And I think that's because they don't want to get sidetracked. There's so many things in this game that are constantly begging for your attention to go do, like skeleton forts or megalodons, skeleton ships, other crews, and mission in a bottle kind of quests that you pick up, things like that always constantly want to draw your attention away from doing a tall tale. And with some people not having all the time in the world to be able to do those, then their time is valuable, and it already takes a lot of time to get up and going with some of these tall tales. So them focusing on that is a valuable reason for them to, or an understandable reason for them to not want to drop multiple voyages down. I think if in the future we have shorter tall tales, something that can be completed in a half hour, then there's more likelihood that people will be like, okay, well, this is only going to take a half hour. We want to get a fair amount of time or a fair amount of effort done for the hour or two that we have done. So let's go ahead and toss down an Athena's or Gold Hoarders or an Order of Souls, and we'll work on both. Hopefully the RNG for where those voyages spawn will help kind of coincide with the tall tale that you want to do. And that being said, hopefully if you think about doing this in the future, that you drop down the voyage, see where the voyage takes you, and then plan your tall tale around that instead of just picking the tall tale that you want to do and hoping that dropping a voyage will spawn islands that you can do nearby that tall tale, because otherwise you're going to be stuck running wherever it takes you. All right, pirates, next up on today's docket, I found some interesting things that was posted in, let's see, I think it was Captain Jay's Discord server from the Crow's Nest. And it actually is interesting because the things that were posted are supposedly things that are actually really old, but I never even found out about. And what I'm talking about is these statues that were made by Tier 1 Accessories. I've gone to Tier 1 Accessories. I haven't been able to access their website. I don't even know if they have a website anymore. But apparently at some point back in summer of 2018, they offered a Captain Flameheart, a Bell, Diving Bell, Legend of the Deep, and a Pirate Lord statue. And these are 6-inch figurines. And the reason I'm bringing these up is, one, they look awesome, and I'm really sad that I missed out on them. Two, I never realized that Belle was called the Legend of the Deep, and I probably should have. Sorry, I just flicked a little bottle cap when I shouldn't have. But I feel like I should have realized that, because I'm pretty sure that they even mention her title in the Sea of Thieves journals, the first book that was released, that was written by Flameheart, Diving Bell, and Nura. And the other part of this that I wanted to bring up was some of some of the pictures that were posted in the Discord. I don't know the origins for, but they are typical animation models that you would see used for game files, fully clothed, fully skinned, and it's interesting because they're set up to be in a position that you can easily put a 3D skeleton into them that you can then bind to the model and then use to animate with. Some of them have Belle as her undead form, which isn't, as far as I can tell, actually an undead form, but very similar to how the mysterious strangers in all of the taverns look with their glowy eyes. But they're definitely not spectral. They're she's very full formed in like actual skin and bones. And there's another image that doesn't have her actually with the glowing eyes. And I'm kind of wondering where these came from, because if they're in the game files, then I'm very excited, because I have wanted to find out more about Diving Bell in current Sea of Thieves. We've learned about her and her past from the books, which has been great. But I'm really interested to see just where this could go, because I've always had this dream of going to visit the Sea of the Damned, the place where the ferryman stays, and having the ferryman actually travel us to the dock or the outpost of the Sea of the Damned, and find out what happened to Diving Bell and Nine Cats Nura. Did Diving Bell go down into the Sea of Damned? Do we have to rescue her with Nura? All these different questions and ideas in my mind about how we could venture into this ghostly world and see, what's beyond just the small scope of visibility that we have when we're on the Ferry of the Damned. Because, to be perfectly frank, the Ferry of the Damned ship is probably my favorite out of the game. There's so many times where I have said that I've wanted to have a ship that looks so much more different than just the color of it or the type of figurehead that you have on it. The ships that we have constantly just change color schemes with the different cosmetics that we have, but we don't really have a way to change the physical geometry of them with liveries. And I still really want that to be a thing. Like, I still really want to have that. And one of the other things that kind of crosses my mind as I'm looking at these models is that Belle has these glowing eyes, similar to the statue that they had when she was made into a big giant statue that's at the Rare Studios. And I wonder if maybe one day we could get a curse that gives us these glowing eyes. And if that was something that actually happened, boy, I tell you what, I would get rid of my eye patch real quick, because my pirate has worn an eye patch day one since he got the day one patch. And if he doesn't have to rely on his actual eyes for vision, and he has these kind of glowing green spectral Athena eyes, yeah, I'm ditching that eye patch for the time being, because that's awesome. So we don't know anything about this. I don't know if these are actually from the Tier 1 Accessories website, because I can't access it. And I don't know that these aren't from game files. And if that's the case, then, man, I can't wait to find out what's coming along down the line, because it could mean, Diving Bell was an amazing diver. She found earrings that she was able to use to speak with mer people, and that is something that is tied into the journals for the Tall Tales, and that just keeps pushing me closer and closer towards the idea that we're getting merfolk to finally be able to experience. We've been We've seen them since the trailers. We've seen them since all the paintings on the stones that we have. There's 2 factions, obviously. There's a curse that suggests that you can turn into a mer person, and that's why the people rescuing us when we fall off a ship look more person than some of the mer people paintings, where they look a lot more like an actual fish than a person. And the statues that are in the tribute peak that are far more human based than the merfolk ones that we're destroying. There's a lot of questions in my mind that come up every time I see some of this stuff pop out of nowhere and tantalize us with the possibilities of what could be possibly coming down the line for content. I'm really excited to see, just as content updates come, if we're going to get more hints on the unmarked islands about what's to come, or changes that could be happening, and if we're going to get more potential tall tales sooner rather than later that might feed into the next content update, as opposed to something that just currently gives us something to do or supports prior tall tales. I'm looking forward to that. That's yeah, I love when this speculation stuff comes out, because I love just letting my mind wander and find out like what could potentially come, like the Tall Tales vault that is suspected to be out on Fetcher's Rest in the Devil's Roar, that has all the birds painted around on the stone, and maybe getting like an actual bird creature that we could actually fight and use the harpoons against. Or if like it's going to be something like the giant crab that's mentioned in the journals left by Captain Morrow from the Forsaken Alliance, or the Forsaken Shores Alliance. If we'll get giant crabs finally, and Shelly the crab will be avenged. Not avenged, I guess it wasn't killed. We don't know what happened to them. Last we saw, she was fighting in the arena. But yeah, God, I love it. I can't wait for more of it, and it's it's not soon enough for us to get details about that in coming updates. All right, pirates. Next up on today's docket, I asked and you gave. I wanted more tales from you. I wanted some First Mates logs so I could get back into the rhythm of doing those after the bunch of interviews and discussions I've had with other guests. And I finally got one from the real Wukong. He sent me an email, says, "Ahoy, Captain. I've really enjoyed your podcast so far. Thanks so much for the entertainment. I have a small story. It was a stormy night on the Sea of Thieves. I had just finished a skull fort with 2 buddies. Not being able to see a mere 25 feet ahead of us, we decided to keep a lookout on the crow's nest and another on the starboard side. Next thing you know, a brigantine pulls up on the starboard side, ready to destroy all of our hard work and steal our loot. I decided that this could not happen. I grabbed a few cannonballs from the barrel, ready for a long and tedious fight. Fire! Screamed the Panther of War, so I shot a single cannonball just above the deck. Thinking I had missed, I loaded up another ball. As it turns out, the ball had hit a gunpowder barrel, which caused a chain reaction between 3 more. Both masts fell, and the brigantine sunk immediately. My crew, the amazing Computer Boy 52, yes, I know the spelling, and I'm not going to say it on the stream, or the podcast even, and the Panther of War celebrated the night away. After crashing, of course, drinking our rum and falling off the boat. Tie yourselves to the mast and hold fast, the real Wukong. Thank you so much for your story. Short and sweet, but man, I love when those moments happen when a crew thinks that they've got you. They're ready to blow you up with a bunch of powder kegs, and they don't anticipate what could happen if one single cannonball, destroyed all of their hopes and dreams. Thank you, real Wukong. If you want to send an email in with your First Mates log, please feel free to do so. Send me your stories at captlogun@gmail.com. Of course, as always, all of my socials are in the show notes. So if you want to get a hold of me, there's always good ways to do that. Just look into the show notes. You'll see my Twitter, my gamer tag, my email address, all that good stuff, my Twitch, and where you can find the podcast if you want to find it outside of your normal means for whatever reason. And with that, let's move on. All right, pirates, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Keelhauled. I did have a great time over the last couple weekends playing with the Keelhauled crew. This last weekend, I had a really good time running with the crew to, we picked up a galleon and we were wandering around. We went and did a couple skull forts, and probably one of my favorite moments was the pure satisfaction of sailing up to the Crow's Nest fort and having a sloop there. The sloop bugged out as soon as they saw a galleon start coming towards them. I managed to get an amazing shot from a cannon, shot myself all the way over to the sloop and boarded them, killed them. Found out that they had a whole bunch of loot already on the ship. They didn't even complete the fort yet, but they still had a bunch of good stuff, like some gemstones, some good skulls. It was really kind of awesome. And I started grabbing what I could and dumping it over the edge. I managed to go down as their ship was sinking because the fort had started to fire on them, and the skeletons, with their nice accuracy, had put a few holes in the back of the ship. So it was taking a little bit of time, but I was willing to wait. I am in the bottom deck trying to steal some loot when they respawn, and they manage to get me into a corner, and I can only block so much before they start to actually get on top of me and kill me. A blunderbuss to the face and a couple sword slashes, and I quickly die. I get back to my ship, and the crew has finally gotten the galleon situated at the fort, and they're starting to kill the skeletons to start clearing out waves. Meanwhile, one of the crews actually manages to grab the rowboat that was at the fort, because Crow's Nest always seems to have a rowboat, and they take it out to the area where I was. The sloop had managed to survive, but had now run with their tail between their legs, trying to avoid any other further contact with us. And our crew goes out with the rowboat and manages to scavenge all the stuff that I had dumped off the side of the ship. It was a ton of fun. We managed finishing up that fort, but the sloop crew had come about and had taken their time and eventually tried to fire on us. We managed to return some fire to them, and we didn't get a chance to sink them, but we definitely sent them packing for a second time. Meanwhile, a brigantine, which we had been kind of keeping our eye on, managed to kind of come around in. For just a split second, it felt like they were going to engage, but for whatever reason, they didn't. And it's a good thing, too, because we had spent the most of our time killing off waves of skeletons. Actually, I think it was only about 3. We managed to steal the fort with just 3 waves left. We grabbed all of the treasure except for a silvered cup, which I insisted that we leave at the entry to the Skull Fort door, because, I mean, you know, second place has to get something. If they decided to come back, they could at least get the silvered cup. So they eventually left. We got all the treasure. We sailed over to Plunder Outpost and completed it. And then we went and did something. I honestly can't even tell you what we went and did. We went to go do some stuff, and we eventually saw that there was another. Oh, I remember what it was. We went to go do another Skull Fort that was up in the wilds. But by the time we had finished defending the fort that we had got from the other crew, gathering it, selling it, and then deciding to restock a little bit and then head north, we just barely missed out on getting to the fort before it despawned. And then it respawned at Crow's Nest Outpost, or Crow's Nest Skull Fort. So we ended up going right back down to where we had started this night and doing another Skull Fort at the same exact place. And as we opened up the vault door for the second time, there, without a doubt, the little silvered cup. They hadn't even gone back to the fort to see if we left anything for them or to resupply or anything. They completely avoided it altogether. They admitted defeat and didn't even try a second time to come back for the second fort. So at that point, I guess we kind of accepted that we were going to have to take the Silvered Cup as well too. So the second fort, we decided to take everything. We didn't leave anything behind for him, and we ended the night a lot richer than we had actually started. Good times were had, and I had a blast being able to sail with the Keelhauled crew. Next weekend, I'm looking to do the same thing. I've really been enjoying getting a chance to play with more and more of the Discord community to kind of make sure that, you know, I get a chance to play with the folks that are fans of the podcast, or have just somehow managed to join as a result of a friend telling them to join up, because the community there is amazing, and I'm constantly amazed by just how much fun we have there, and the discussions that we have, and even stuff that doesn't even pertain to Sea of Thieves. It's just been a lot of fun. So hopefully you get a chance to join up and kind of find out what we're talking about every day when it comes to Sea of Thieves. I finally got enough people. I should say I haven't been waiting on this. Finally, people bugged me enough to have me split up the Looking for Pirate channels. So now the Looking for Pirate channels have an adventure crew and a arena crew. There's also a Looking for Pirate channel just for insiders as well too. So there's lots of discussion being had on a day-to-day basis, and a lot of good people that are taking care of others who are fresher to the game and have yet to hit Pirate Legend. And in fact, congrats to Mina Ferry, one of the longest standing members of the Keelhauled Discord server, who finally hit Athena 10. The other day I was streaming, and she mentioned that she was wanting to do a Tall Tales, and why she wasn't doing an Athena's. I found out that she was a 10th of a level from hitting 10. A 10th of a level. Can you imagine going out, doing all of Athena's up to 9 and 9/10 of the levels, and then not finishing that last 10th, not just completing the last 10th to hit 10 so you could get your figurehead? And she held off on it. And why? Well, because she's an amazing woman, and she gave priority to her family, who continues to play Sea of Thieves, so that they could work on Tall Tales. But this morning I got confirmation in the Discord server that she finally managed to hit Athena level 10, and I couldn't be happier, because she has definitely been one of the biggest staples in the community for the Keelhauled Discord group, and I couldn't be happier to see her hit that. That's the end. She beat the game at this point. Pirates, I think that's gonna close it out. For once, it's a shorter episode. There's no interviews. It's just your stories, my stories, the community stories, and the game news for the week. So I hope you have a good week. I look forward to what's coming this week, and more news about black powder stashes, as well as hopefully some changes that can be done in the future to help make sure that everyone's being serviced in this game that we love so much. Pirates, thank you. I love you, and I look forward to sailing with you on the Sea of Thieves.